Welcome to Raaonline. Today class is about the pericardium. Pericardium of the heart. Pericardium is a fibroserous sac surrounding the heart and the roots of the great vessels. What is the location of the pericardium? The pericardium is situated in the middle mediastinum, behind the body of the sternum and second and the sixth costal cartilage. If you look at this picture, this is the middle mediastinum and which is present behind the body of the sternum, and the costal cartilages is second to sixth costal cartilages, and in front of the bodies of the fifth to eighth. This is very important. So what is the location? It is located in the middle mediastinum, behind the body of the sternum, and what are the costal cartilages? Second to sixth, and the vertebra is the bodies of the fifth to the eighth thoracic vertebra. What are the components of the pericardium? The pericardium, we have the visceral pericardium and the fibrous pericardium and the serous pericardium. This serous pericardium is again divided into parietal pericardium and the visceral pericardium. When you look at the pleura is only a serous covering, and peritoneum is also again a serous covering. But the pericardium alone, it is a fibroserous sac that surrounds the heart. So it has a fibrous part, that is a one component, and other component is the serous pericardium. Okay. Now we will see the components of the pericardium. The fibrous pericardium, it is a outer tough connective tissue layer, whereas the serous pericardium is a thin inner layer of the pericardium. This serous pericardium again consists of two parts. One is the parietal pericardium and the visceral pericardium. This parietal pericardium lines the inner surface of the fibrous pericardium, whereas the visceral pericardium is adherent to the heart and forms the outer covering of the heart. So the visceral pericardium is otherwise known as the epicardium. Once again I repeat, the fibrous pericardium, as the name indicates, it is an outer layer which is very tough and it is made up of connective tissue layer, whereas the serous pericardium, which is very thin and it is the inner layer of the pericardium. This serous pericardium consists of two parts. One is the parietal pericardium and the visceral pericardium. This parietal pericardium lines the inner surface of the fibrous pericardium, whereas the visceral pericardium adherent to the heart and forms an outer covering of the heart, otherwise known as the epicardium. So you can see here, this is the outermost layer is the fibrous pericardium, and this is the parietal which lines the inner surface of the fibrous pericardium, and the layer which is adherent to the heart, that is the visceral pericardium, otherwise known as epicardium, which forms the outer covering of the heart. What is the pericardial cavity? The parietal and the visceral layers of the serous pericardium are continuous at the root of the great vessels. The narrow space that is created between these two layers of the serous pericardium contains a very small amount of fluid, and this cavity is known as what? Pericardial cavity. So the pericardial cavity is situated between the two layers of the serous pericardium, that is in between the parietal pericardium and the visceral pericardium. Now we will see about the fibrous pericardium. As I said, it is a fibrous pericardium. The heart, the pericardium itself is a fibroserous sac. This fibrous pericardium is a cone shape with the inferior base and the superior apex. If you look at this is the fibrous pericardium. Okay. If you see the fibrous pericardium, the apex is above, whereas the base is in the inferior. Whereas in case of heart, the apex will be in the base. Okay, apex will be towards down. Okay, that is the main difference between the pericardium and the heart. So in fibrous pericardium, it is a cone shape and with an inferior base and a superior apex. The apex, if you look, it is very blunt and continuous with the outer coat of the roots of the great blood vessels. So what is the outer coat of the blood vessels? As we know, it is the tunica adventitia. So the apex, what is that? It is the blunt and it is continuous with the or at the layer, the fibrous pericardium fused to the outer coat of the roots of the great blood vessels and blends with the pretracheal layer of the deep cervical fascia. As we know, the deep cervical fascia of the neck has 3 layers. One is the investing layer, another is the pretracheal layer and the prevertebral layer. What happens? This fibrous pericardium also blends with the pretracheal layer of the deep cervical fascia. Now we'll see about the base. What happens to the base? The base blends with the central tendon of the diaphragm. This is the fibrous layer and you can see that it fuses with this the diaphragm. So it is fused to the diaphragm. Okay, so it is fixed to the central tendon of the diaphragm. How this is anteriorly fixed? This fibrous pericardium, anteriorly it is attached to the superior and the inferior end of the body of the sternum. This is the sternum, okay? This is the sternum and this is attached, anteriorly it is attached to the sternum, body of the sternum superiorly and inferiorly by the ligament. What is that ligament is known as? It is the superior sternopericardial ligament and inferior sternopericardial ligament. It is like a seat belt. When you drive safely, if you want to drive, you will wear a seat belt. So in the same way, this is the fibrous pericardium is kept in position by these two ligaments. One is the superior sternopericardial ligament, another is the inferior sternopericardial ligament.